minds.
There are a few things that was on my mind, but one very specifically pertaining to the recent polling, and honestly, Sanders at this point is not being helpful. In fact, I would even make the argument that Sanders is anti-helping, meaning I don't think he fully understands the moment that we're in. And because he doesn't seem to fully understand the moment, he is missing out. And not just missing out, he is putting us at somewhat of a disadvantage. Right now, one of the best pieces of news that I've heard. I was even so enamored by this news, I was going to get up and do the news at like 3 in the morning. But I waited for the show. The catch here is the best piece of news, and it may be weird to some people to hear me saying the best piece of news. You guys know I don't particularly like Trump. I don't like Joe Biden either. I don't have a dog in this hunt. And so for me, from the standpoint of the left, new polling is utterly amazing. The Democratic, this one right here. New CNN poll taken after Trump's executive order has Trump surging back from being 14 points down in June to being within 4 points of Joe Biden. Now, Biden leads 50% to 46%. Now, all of this comes after Trump's executive order. This is a CNN poll. And if you get to the battleground states, the states that matter, not necessarily the national one, Biden, 49, Trump, 48. That's a 1 point difference. See, the thing is, if you have a Congress that doesn't seem to get anything accomplished, and I know people feel some kind of way about people saying that Nancy Pelosi has an incentive not necessarily to negotiate. Well, that's just true. Whether or not she would be that grotesque is one thing, but whether or not it's just true as a flat fact, it is true. The Republican Party doesn't want to negotiate. So the president, who's the singular guy from the executive branch, goes out, he makes his pitch, says, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a strong man. I'm going to be above all of it. Now, whether it's legal or whether or not it's even going to be worthwhile from a temporal standpoint is almost less relevant than the fact that he was willing to do it. Because from the public standpoint, it looks like, okay, the president is trying to do X and Congress is stopping him from doing X. Now, this poll basically gets across that the public, now that you've narrowed the field down, now that the people know exactly who's going to be running, mano a mano, Trump pulls within 1. And he makes up like 14 points within the course of a couple of months. If you're a lefty, this is amazing news. Now, not because you necessarily are voting for Trump, nor is it necessarily because you're voting for Biden. It's just the understanding that the tightening of the race gives you that much more leverage in regards to what you want to accomplish from the standpoint of policy. That's assuming you have the stones and you're willing to go through with it. This is my point when I say Sanders is not being helpful in this regard. This race is tightening. Let's play the clip for Sanders. In this moment, this is the opposite of what Sanders should be talking about right now. But let's hear Sanders. Tell me, Sanders, what's going on? What should take place?
I think what almost all progressives understand that in this moment, we have got to do everything we can to come together to defeat Donald Trump, who in my view is the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country, and elect Joe Biden. But as I have said many, many times, the day after Biden is elected, we're going to be working with the grassroots in this country, with working people, with people of color, with young people, to stand up and fight for an agenda that works for working families, not just the 1%. And that most certainly includes Medicare for all. So we're going to rally the American people around an agenda, and I look forward to doing that the day after Biden is elected.
Yeah, I'm going to rally the country around an agenda after I lose all my leverage. That's not politics. That's gaslighting. What he's basically trying to get you to do is, hey, I'm just trying to give you a reason to vote for Joe Biden, and then we're going to go fight. Medicare for all has 88% approval. You're in the middle of a pandemic, and even from the standpoint of the overwhelming public, it's 70%. You can't get that over the finish line now. Joe Biden, I'm trying to put this in perspective for you. You have a policy that has nearly unanimous support among Democrats. You, Bernie Sanders, the guy that wrote it, can't even push the other guy to accept it. But you're trying to convince all of these lefties that after Joe Biden gets in office and after you lose all of your leverage, then we're going to push for this policy that Joe Biden said he'd veto if it even got through the House and the Senate. That's the opposite of politics. You're not helping the situation. The polls have tightened. Joe Biden goes to Netroots Nation. This is kind of a lefty thing. And he says, I badly need you. The country needs you. By the way, this is virtual. He just sent a quick taped address. I badly need you. The country needs you, Biden said in a taped address to this year, all virtual gathering. Biden address marked another step in his outreach to the leftist wing. I don't think you guys know what outreach is. And the younger voters, the Democratic Party, he did not attend the group's annual gathering last year, even after having launched his 2020 bid. Biden praised the group's grassroots members for being the climate activists, the caregivers, the advocates who first understood that healthcare is a right, but added that their policy objectives can only be accomplished if they voted him in office. We can only do these things, but only if we defeat Donald Trump. The problem is, Biden clearly is not for your policy objectives. The Democratic Party is clearly not for your policy objectives. 88% Medicare support, and Joe Biden tells you to go kick rocks. Even from the standpoint of eliminating all student debt, even raising a wealth tax, all of those things were dramatically popular. And all of those things were necessary and called for by the moment that we are in. Joe Biden sends out a videotape, and they say he's reaching out to the left because of this videotape. And Bernie Sanders goes in, hey, you got to vote for Joe Biden. What happens? Do tell me, what happens? If Joe Biden sends that virtual address and every last lefty, TYT that doesn't get an invite, still goes out and vote for Biden. These networks, network groups or whatever these guys are. All of these lefty groups and organizations, Greenpeace, or what's the other one? The youth group. All of these groups standing in solidarity saying, you get our support if you support XYZ. And you don't if you don't support those policies. That is the only pathway. The only thing Sanders should have came out here and said in that clip is, if Joe Biden wants the support of all of these people, the American public, 88% supports Medicare for all, Joe Biden needs to explain to the American public why he doesn't support this policy that has that much support. He needs to explain to the American public why he doesn't support a wealth tax, why he doesn't support the expansion of Social Security, elimination of all student debt. You need to explain these things, especially in the context of the moment that we are in. You don't come out and say, go vote for the guy for nothing. You're giving it all and you're getting nothing. That is the opposite of politics. The reason why AOC is going to get 60 seconds in case it is going to get a full time frame is because in their heads, they believe you have nowhere else to go. And then if you accept that, and not just accept it, but even argue that, yeah, you have nowhere else to go, you got to vote for Joe Biden, then you're going to push after. A, you're gaslighting. B, you're sheepdogging. And C, it's not true. That is the opposite of politics. Sanders should not be listened to when he says stuff like this. You guys are listening to Fault Lines with Thomas and Stranahan. We will be back in a moment.
Anyway, we've got a couple of callers, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
So the first one, Tariq. Tariq in Georgia. What's going on, Tariq?
Hey, yeah, I wanted to say I agree with you, Jamarl, about Bernie Sanders. I don't know why I feel so let down by Bernie Sanders. And, I was one of the real supporters of Bernie Sanders. I've gotten all of my family and people that they know to support this guy. And given, I've never donated to anybody. And I've given Bernie over $1,000. I really feel really let down by Bernie Sanders, and I say this on top of, we're going through an economic depression. We're going through a social justice movement bigger than, that of the 60s. We're going through a healthcare pandemic. And then, Bernie Sanders is just, I feel like we need to allow Biden to lose. I mean, with the pick of Kamala Harris, I'll never vote for Republican or for Trump, but I think the Democrats need to lose. I mean, they're not offering anything, and
they don't believe they have to, Tariq. I can't. But that's just it. Tariq, they don't believe they have to. I mean, look, they can give AOC 60 seconds. Well, they can cut TYT, meaning not allow them to come to the list. You can have 88% of the Democratic Party support Medicare for all. You can have like 70% or more supporting college. Basically, Sanders' platform wasn't radical. It was something that the American public basically agreed with. Not to mention, you're in the middle of a pandemic with 170,000 deaths, with 1,000 people dying a day, and you can't get healthcare over the finish line, and you can't even make the argument when you're being asked to make it that much more pointed that, no, my job in this, my responsibility in this, goes beyond just me running as a senator. It goes to this notion that the country has things that it needs. And what is my responsibility in this moment? Just to put those things out, or to try to be a good steward to get those things over the finish line, even if I can't necessarily win. And that's called political pressure. That's not giving over all of your support the moment that you get into the race, meaning they can do anything to you and you still turn around and support the Democrat. And you question why they ignore you. And black students too. Like, blacks will vote for Hillary Clinton to the tune of like 93%. Hillary Clinton offered you hot sauce with Mary J. Blige crooning in the background, weirdly and oddly. That's not getting you anything. Picking Kamala Harris, it's not getting you anything. It's all performative. Do you have a community that needs things or not? Yay or nay? And this goes to white, black, gay, straight, trans. I mean, before the moment, it was like $18,000 a year, made by like nearly half of the public. I'm asking you something fundamentally different. Does your society need things? And is your society getting the things that it needs from a political instrument that is attentive to those needs? The honest answer, of course, is no. Is that just for the Republican Party, or is it also for Democrats? It's also for Democrats. And the argument that Sanders has made many of these years is both of these parties are corrupt. We got to fight the political establishment. But then when it comes to it, real brass tacks, it's this nonsense. Yeah, you got to vote for Joe Biden, despite the fact that Joe Biden is not going to offer you anything because Donald Trump is just that bad. No. The argument and the perspective that needs to be taken by lefties, if they want to get anything accomplished, is to stand under policy. You get our support if we believe you're going to accept X and Y. It's not that you're going to get everything that you want. It's more so that you're willing to pointedly argue your case and not necessarily acquiesce, knowing that the acquiescing is the thing that fundamentally eliminates your point of view from the political process. Well, one more caller, Ingrid in D.C.
Hey, Jamarl, you really made my day. You are spot on about Bernie, but besides that, to say that Trump was within spitting distance of Biden, you know the expression, there's no hell like a woman scorned. And the way the Democrats have behaved for 4 years, I will be happy to suffer under 4 more years of Trump, not to give them the opportunity to get into office. And when they see, by they now I mean the public, what's going on, what's been spawned by the Black Lives Matter movement in Portland last night, these scum, these criminal trash that use the BLM as cover just to harass people, they beat down on some poor guy. When the ambulance came and got him, he was unconscious and bleeding from the head. If he's not dead, thank God. But I do not pray for the salvation of that beast who kicked him. I hope that God or anybody else smites him completely.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, thank you, Ingrid. Yeah, that's strong.
By the way,
Smite.
we are taking calls 202-521-1320. Again, 202-521-1320. On Portland, on that issue, it seems like Portland is really sort of the name for these things. It's the synecdoche or whatever. It's the word that we use to describe the concept. But on Portland, and we were talking about this stuff with Ian Miles Chong late last week. I kind of agree with Ingrid that there are a bunch of people who are obviously using the movement as cover to pursue, arguably, their own agenda, and that's not good. And that's not good, man. One quick thing here too is it's one thing if they're pursuing a political or economic agenda that's broadly consistent with Black Lives Matter. So if they're pursuing anti-capitalism or these policies that, you know, are promoted and promulgated by not only the followers of the movement but also by its leaders, that's one thing. It's another to use pretty excessive tactics and to sort of degrade the quality of the movement by being violent, by acting, you know, what I would say is either childishly or dangerously or whatever, just, you know, whatever terms you want to use to describe it. And it's especially frustrating because the anonymity sort of breeds this mixing of, you don't know who's a protester, you don't know who's one of these people, you don't know if they're peaceful or if they're violent or whatever. And that, I think, actually makes, I mean, it's a Black Lives Matter protest. There's like a racial element to it. I think that it's literally like racial cover in a weird way. I don't know.
It is.
Again,
no, it is.
You can,
I agree with you.
There's an element of that. And like, I don't want to overstate it because you can still see what colors people's skin are, but there's like an element of racial cover where some of it, specifically with the white protesters going in, I don't know, there's an element to that, and I don't want to play that up too much. We do have another caller. We've got Patrick calling in from Memphis. 202-521-1320 is the number. Jamarl, do you want to comment before we bring Patrick in, or do you want to?
Well,
just
I was going to
bring
say, I
Ryan
do
in?
agree with you on that. I do think it devalues. Look, I understand if the social contract you feel has been broken in a way, and as such, you want to make your pain the rest of the world's pain. I get that on some level. But you could do that without necessarily being violent or injuring people. And I think it undermines it even to do so, because I think you turned public opinion away from it. I agree with you. There may be some people who are using the movement as cover for these type of activities. No, I can't say I disagree with you. Like you say, I don't know what that number is. Many of the cases that people found, some of these guys were white nationalists. Some of these people were of black. So it's hard to know what those exact numbers are. But yeah, I think they're using the movement for cover. Patrick in Memphis. Patrick, what's up?
Hey, good morning. How you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Well, okay. Well, I was calling in to say that I am so offended by the Democratic Party and the choice of Kamala Harris as the VP. It's really offensive that they're saying that she's black. She's not black whatsoever. She's Indian. You have people who are saying that her father is Jamaican when there's Indian people who've been on the island since 1845. They've been there over 180 years. And so it's offensive to me because black people support the Democratic Party in the 90% percentile when voting, and to pass this woman off as a first black person or a person of color is just highly offensive. It would be more meaningful if it was a person who was descendant of a slave in America to be the first something of anything in America. It doesn't matter when it's someone else. It's more meaningful when it's a black person. But before I vote for a Democrat, I would rather be sent to hell with gasoline drenched draws on, riding on a heat-seeking missile before I vote for a Democrat on any level, down ballot or presidential.
Patrick, thank you for the call. Let's take a break. Patrick going to hell with gasoline draws on, fair enough. Tell me how you really feel. You guys are listening to Fault Lines with Thomas and Stranahan. We'll be back in a moment.